Oh, so yeah, I'm gonna go push. the button.
No, not when we're already done.
So we'll call the meeting back to order. And we're gonna do just a run through on the right to repair bill, H81. And yeah, we have Rick with us who drafted this thing. And you've been following the draft, is it went, no, you didn't do it last year, cause
No, sir.
no, so. We're gonna be, taking some testimony on this, next week, I think. Or tomorrow. And so I thought we'd get a run through of it so we could understand it a little bit better ourselves and what's involved and not involved.
Yeah.
So, welcome. I don't know if you have met everybody yet.
Yep, Brian Collmore, Lower Rutland District.
Yes, sir.
Irene Runner to the north of Fairfax.
Brian Campion, thank you.
I'm Rich Westman. Well, I'll be right back.
Yes, sir. Well, Rick Sagel, Legislative Council. Thanks for having me back here. So H81, David Hall wrote it last year, but since he left, I've taken it over. And as the chair mentioned, we did a kind of a brief walkthrough a few weeks ago before you all had the bill. Now you have the bill. So I'm glad to discuss the findings, although I don't know, I'll leave it up to the chair. Do you want me to go through the findings?
Yeah, may as well. We
Okay.
got half hour or so.
Okay.
So,
All right. So H81, we'll start off with the findings. And then, if you all have any questions as I go through, please just interrupt me or let the chair know, and I will stop. So the Vermont food, agriculture, and forest sectors are significant components of the state's economy, its rural heritage, and its identity as a state. According to the Working Lands Institute, Enterprise Initiative, about 20% of Vermont's land is used for agriculture, while 78% is forested. In surveys, over 97% of Vermonters expressed the way that they value the working landscape. In 2023, the U.S. Food and Agriculture Industry's Economic Impact Study found that food and agriculture industries in Vermont were associated with nearly 104,000 jobs, 5.2 billion in wages, and 19.3 billion in economic output. The Vermont Sustainable Jobs Fund estimates that Vermont's forest products industry generates an annual economic output of 1.4 billion and supports 10,500 jobs. Agricultural and forestry activity varies by season, is weather dependent, and is heavily reliant on having access to increasingly sophisticated agricultural and forestry equipment. Vermont farmers and foresters' access to safe and reliable equipment is essential to timely planting, cultivating, tilling, and harvesting of produce, protein, grain, timber, and other wood forest products. The COVID-19 pandemic further highlighted the increased and ongoing need for functional agricultural and forestry equipment, as individuals in Vermont increasingly rely on the equipment to guarantee access to food and wood products during periods of supply chain disruption of raw material and commodity shortages and heightened food insecurity. Authorized repair providers, which I'll define here in a little bit, are important Vermont businesses that play a critical role for farmers and foresters by offering access to diagnosis, maintenance, and repair services for agricultural and forestry equipment. In general, original equipment manufacturers, I'm going to shorten that to OEM for y'all's sake and my sake, and I will define that here in a little bit, and authorized repair providers are able to provide independent repair providers and owners with adequate access to necessary parts for agricultural and forestry equipment. However, the continued movement towards computerized agricultural and forestry equipment means that independent repair providers and owners do not have full access to the software, codes, and other information necessary to perform all the diagnosis, maintenance, and repair services required to ensure the equipment remains operational. Due to workforce and geographic constraints, authorized repair providers are not always able to meet the demand for timely diagnosis, maintenance, or repair services to farmers and foresters in the state. As for many Vermont employers, critical workforce shortages prevent authorized repair providers from operating at full staff capacity, which can contribute to costly delays in performing diagnosis, maintenance, and repair services. The need for more accessible and affordable repair options is felt more acutely among specific sectors of the population, notably Vermont residents in more rural and remote areas. OEM shops or authorized repair providers are often located in a small number of locations found in larger communities, which may require technicians and users to travel long distances for repair or to be without functioning agricultural or forestry equipment for a long period of time. Many owners are capable of performing diagnosis, maintenance, and repair services for their equipment, but often lack sufficient access to information necessary to perform these repairs. Limits placed on software and operating systems, including capping the number of users and employing proprietary diagnostic, and repair programs, have resulted in the pirating of agricultural and forestry equipment, software, and hacking of equipment.
Do you know where these findings came from?
No, sir, I'm sure when I pull the file, I can cite where these findings were found, but because I, didn't initiate the bill.
Yeah, like number 10, many owners are capable of performing and.
Yeah.
I question that.
Sure. So next time I'm here, I'll provide some citations to these findings.
Mr. Chair, is this what Senator Ron Pinsdale sent to us on the floor? Is that, okay, so she decided.
Send it.
Send it, okay, thank you.
Yeah, she didn't have time to deal with it.
Okay, thank you.
Subdivision 11, independent repair providers. I think I finished part 10.
Oh, you did.
I didn't.
We started blank one. We were Phil sense.
Okay. Endangering farmers and foresters in the conduct of their work and potentially cause additional air pollution and environmental harm. Independent repair providers play a vital role in Vermont's economy. Providing access to information, parts, and diagnostic and repair tools is essential in contributing to a competitive repair market and allowing independent repair shop employees to fix equipment safely. In addition to providing better access for timely repair, extending the useful life and efficient operation of equipment can ensure additional benefits for farmers, workers, and the environment. Computerized components of modern agricultural and forestry equipment include precious metals that are finite, and unnecessary early disposal can be avoided with greater accessibility to proper and affordable repair. Emissions of agricultural and forestry equipment are better regulated and limited by functional software and hardware computer elements, thereby increasing the need for access to timely and effective repairs to ensure optimal functionality. Broader distribution of the information, tools, and parts necessary to repair modern agricultural and forestry equipment will shorten repair times, lengthen the useful lives of the equipment, lower costs for users, and benefit the environment.
Can I just ask you again, this is part of the findings, line 20 says lower costs for users. And I would question whether that's true.
Then we have subsection B. The purpose of this act is to ensure equitable access to the parts, tools, and documentation that are necessary for independent repair providers and owners to perform timely repair of agricultural and forestry equipment in a safe, secure, reliable, and sustainable manner. Okay, so the short title would be the Fair Repair Act, which is pretty general, even though this just applies to agricultural equipment. So we're going to be in 4051. This is a new chapter in Title 9, Agricultural and Forestry Equipment Fair Repair. So we have definitions, and these are pretty important to understand and make sure we're on the same page here. Agricultural equipment being a device, part of a device, or an attachment to a device designed to be used principally off-road for an agricultural purpose, including a tractor, trailer, combine, implements for tillage, planting, or cultivation, and other equipment principally associated with livestock or crop production, horticulture, floriculture. Authorized repair provider means an individual or business that has an arrangement with the OEM under which the OEM grants to the individual or business a license to use trade name, service mark, or other proprietary identifier for the purposes of offering the service, diagnosis, maintenance, or repair of equipment under the name of the OEM or other arrangement with the OEM to offer such services on behalf of the OEM. An OEM that offers the services of diagnosis, maintenance, repair of its own equipment and does not have an arrangement through a authorized repair provider shall be considered an authorized repair provider.
So what does that mean?
So part B,
Yeah,
if company X has no association with an authorized repair provider in the state or in Vermont, then company X would handle those repairs on its own. And they would be considered under the statute an authorized repair provider. So if they don't have an arrangement with another company to do their repairs for them, the OEM would be considered their own authorized repair provider.
and so it wouldn't mean like if I bought the equipment personally and went and fixed somebody's tractor or whatever.
No. So this would be like, let's say John Deere, right? If John
You'd
Deere,
have to have a contract with a person.
if John Deere does not have that contract with a repair provider to do warranty work or some kind of official work on behalf of John Deere actually sends out its own employees to do the work. John Deere would be the authorized repair provider, as well as the OEM, right? They're still the manufacturer, but they'd also be considered under the statute the authorized repair provider for John Deere at the bids. It's because we use that term throughout the statute, sometimes in place of OEM. So this is making sure that when we say authorized repair provider, this could also mean the OEM that's doing the work on its own. Subdivision 3, documentation means any manual, diagram, reporting output, service code description, schematic diagram, security code, password, or other guidance or information, whether in an electronic or changeable format, that an OEM provides to an authorized repair provider to assist with the services of diagnosis, maintenance, or repair of agricultural or forestry equipment. Forestry equipment means a non-divisible or means non-divisible equipment, implements, accessories. This word throws me off. Contrivances. Don't know how that's pronounced. I know what it means. Used directly and principally off-road in harvesting timber for on-site processing of agricultural products, including equipment used to construct, maintain, or install infrastructure necessary to and associated with a logging operation. Independent repair provider means a person, which could be, as you all know, a business or an individual operating in this state that does not have an arrangement described in subdivision 2, meaning that authorized
With the
OEM,
dealership.
right? They don't have that arrangement with an OEM, and that is engaged in the services of diagnosis, maintenance, or repair of agricultural and forestry equipment. Yes.
So they have no arrangements with the OEM or this person has no connection to.
Right. They know how to fix the equipment, allegedly, but they have no contract. Original equipment manufacturer means a person engaged in the business of selling, leasing, or supplying new agricultural or forestry equipment manufactured by or on behalf of itself to an individual business. Owner means an individual or business that owns or leases agricultural or forestry equipment purchased or used in the state. That's important. So if you buy the product elsewhere and it's delivered here, buy it online, or if you buy in New York and it's delivered here, this statute still applies. It still protects the Vermont resident because they're using it in Vermont.
Yeah.
Part means any replacement part, either new or used, made available by an OEM for purposes of effecting the services of maintenance or repair of agricultural or forestry equipment manufactured by or on behalf of, sold, or otherwise supplied by the OEM. Tools means any software program, hardware implement, or other apparatus used for diagnosis, maintenance, or repair of agricultural or forestry equipment, including software or the mechanisms that provision, program, or repair a new part, calibrate functionality, or perform any other function required to bring the product back to fully functional condition, including the updates.
So does this require the OEM or the seller of this equipment to provide any of this?
The trade secret,
Number
number 9, tools. So yes, you'll see here later, we use tools. We use that term to, as part of the terms, they must provide these tools to unlock a device or to help repair a device. I think it'll make more sense when we see how the term is used. So trade secret means information, including a formula, pattern, compilation program, device, method, technique, or process that derives independent economic value, actual or potential, from not being generally known to, not being readily ascertainable by proper means, by other persons who can obtain economic value from its disclosure or use, and is the subject of efforts that are reasonable under the circumstances to maintain the secrecy. So this is to protect manufacturers, that they don't want to have to divulge these trade secrets to independent repair shops or owners who may have ill desires. Section 4052, availability of parts, tools, and documentation. Duty to make available parts, tools, and documentation. An OEM shall offer for sale or otherwise make available to an independent repair provider or owner the parts, tools, and documentation that the OEM offers for sale or otherwise makes available to an authorized repair provider. If agricultural or forestry equipment includes an electronic security lock or other security-related function that must be unlocked or disabled to perform diagnosis, maintenance, or repair of the equipment, an OEM shall make available to an independent repair provider or owner any parts, tools, and documentation necessary to unlock or disable the function and to reset the lock or function after the diagnosis, maintenance, or repair is complete. My understanding that's pretty critical. A lot of this equipment cannot be unlocked, so that is one of the things stopping the owner from actually seeing what the problem is they can't even unlock the piece of equipment. So that's maybe the first step is they can diagnose it without having to have the OEM come or an authorized repair provider come and diagnose it. An OEM may make parts, tools, and documentation available to an independent repair provider or owner through an authorized repair provider that consents to sell or make available parts, tools, or documentation on behalf of the manufacturer. Subsection B, terms, limitations. Under the terms governing the sale or provision of parts, tools, and documentation, an OEM shall not impose on an independent repair provider or owner an additional cost or burden that is not reasonably necessary within the ordinary course of business, or is designed to be independent on the independent repair provider or owner, including a substantial obligation to use or a restriction on the use of the parts, tools, or documentation necessary to diagnose, maintain, or repair the equipment. A condition that the independent repair provider or owner become an authorized repair provider of the OEM. A requirement that a part, tool, or documentation be registered, paired with, or approved by the OEM or an authorized repair provider before the part, tool, or documentation is operational, or an additional burden or material change that adversely affects the timeliness or method of delivering parts, tools, or documentation.
So can I go back to line 4 there, Rick?
Sure.
Who's gonna decide what's reasonable?
So whenever that's used in law, that is a kind of a stretchy word that a court or a jury could eventually, typically the word reasonably is used in the course of business. So in this case, and in fact, that term is used there within the ordinary course of business. So if this was a dispute between an OEM and a owner, there has to be a court would define this is what we think reasonable is in your state or in this where you live. Think how specific it is.
So a court could just take it case by case?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, that,
Question.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't say it often, but that's a good.
and that leaves that wide open.
In some lines.
When it comes to that term is used quite a bit in law.
Yeah, we talk about the highest beyond a reasonable doubt, right? It's the most restrictive.
Right.
So,
And the term reasonable person, would a reasonable person have done this? Would a reasonable person, sweep their sidewalk, clean the ice off the sidewalk if it snows overnight? If you don't, somebody can slip and fall, right? So not to go down that rabbit hole, but reasonable sometimes is the only word you can use to kind of give the court some kind of framework to work with. Okay. Subsection C, cost limitations. An OEM shall offer for sale or otherwise make available parts, tools, documentation to an independent repair provider or owner at a cost that is fair to both parties, considering the agreed upon conditions, promised quality, and timeliness of delivery. And pretty broad, right? That's fair,
Mhm.
Two, that does not discourage or disincentivize repairs to be made by an owner or independent repair provider. So this, the 4053 is the teeth of this. What happens if the OEM does not basically follow the term of the law here? A person who violates a provision of this chapter commits an unfair and deceptive act in trade and commerce in violation of section 2453 of this title. And that would be treble damages, where the AG could go after triple the amount of damage that is caused by the manufacturer's not appropriate actions. The Attorney General has the same authority to make rules, conduct civil investigations, enter into assurances of discontinuance, and bring civil actions as provided in Chapter 63, subchapter 1 of this title. Okay, application limitations. This chapter does not require an OEM to divulge a trade secret to an owner or an independent service provider. And I don't know why we've been using repair provider. I'm not sure why all of a sudden this is served. I just noticed that. I'm sorry, what this is. We're on line 13 on page 10. There might be a reason. There might be a reason.
Sounds like it.
Subsection B, this chapter does not alter the terms of the arrangement described in subdivision 40D12A, which is the arrangement between the authorized repair provider and the OEM. It does not alter those terms, including the performance or provision of warranty or recall repair work by an authorized repair provider on behalf of an OEM pursuant to such arrangement, except that any provision governing such an arrangement that purports to waive, avoid, restrict, or limit the OEM's obligations to comply with this chapter is void and unenforceable. Subsection C, an independent repair provider or owner shall not modify agricultural or forestry equipment to deactivate a safety notification system, except as necessary to provide diagnosis, maintenance, or repair services. Access any function of a tool that enables the independent repair provider or owner to change the settings for a piece of agricultural or forestry equipment in a manner that brings the equipment out of compliance with any applicable federal, state, or local safety or emissions law, except as necessary to provide diagnosis, maintenance, or repair services, or obtain or use parts, tools, documentation to evade or violate emissions, copyright, trademark, or patent laws, or to engage in any other illegal activity. And yet the effective date of January 1st.
So what penalties goes with number 2 or that C section, modifying agricultural and forest equipment? And what penalties goes with that section?
So you would go back to the enforcement, which, does apply to, technically, it does apply to the manufacturers and to the owners, and independent providers. However, that would be up to the Attorney General. Would the Attorney General want to prosecute or levy a penalty against an owner who violates some kind of emissions law, or who deactivates the safety notification system? That would be the Attorney General's office call on how to handle that.
And because what has happened in some areas, because big trucks had all this stuff put on it way before farm equipment. And you could go to an individual in Quebec, say, or New York or New Hampshire, and they would disconnect all this pollution stuff and bypass it. And then they wouldn't have that problem again. And as far as I know, they pull into a roadside DOT check, even though all that stuff is unhooked. There's no detection of that being unhooked, and so, they're polluting and whatever. And so the federal government came out with a law that if you go to exchange that vehicle for a new vehicle or another vehicle, and that stuff is unhooked, there's a law that doesn't allow the company to take that truck and that vehicle in trade. So, but the first few years,
Yeah.
there was no law where they would, do anything to the individual.
Yeah.
Or they didn't check it or something. And, but anyways, I just, there should be some type of an enforcement so that if you bought this piece of equipment and you unhooked or disabled all that stuff and just made it a regular diesel engine, that there'd be some penalties involved.
Yeah, I don't know. This last section, again, was here. This is probably language to make the manufacturer feel more comfortable with this type of legislation. Is, if you give them the keys to make changes to the equipment, these owners and independent providers, let's make sure they're not doing illicit things. It's not going to obviously stop everybody from doing these illicit things. However, I think it's there to, as a warning. This is not what this is meant to do. This is meant to help you in case your equipment is broken down and the authorized provider is a month out or 2 months out. I think that's the main crux of this bill, is to help those people. And the tiny minority that have ulterior motives, maybe this language stops that happening. But it's up to the Attorney General, right, to pursue that. But this does give that office the ability to go after those actors. Do you want me to talk? Oh, sorry.
I was just wondering, Mr. Chair, do we know if the agriculture community is looking for this in a way? Is this something that is a big concern for them? Have we heard?
Well, I had Linda contact 4 or 5 people,
I think.
Okay.
and
So,
they,
yeah.
they didn't, couldn't come in or didn't have time.
Well, there were 9 altogether. There were 9 people altogether I contacted and 5, 4 of them couldn't.
Okay, just curious, yeah.
Ivy,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think when we did our field trip, went to the different farms, we heard
Yeah.
from someone about right to repair, that it was important to them to do this.
we did hear
I think
that.
so, yeah, when we were talking to folks on the tractors. How long it takes for them to put a tractor on a, flatbed truck and haul it to the, if they can do something right from the barn, it's so much more convenient. And that's how people used to do it, right? You used to repair your own tractor. This is the
Wow.
tradition, right? Like, just like we used to change our own oil.
You used to be able to change your own spark plugs in your car.
Exactly.
And, I don't know of anybody that tries that today. You take it to the deal.
Yeah.
That's because I'm older.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the other piece of this is there's a memorandum of understanding, as I understand, from the manufacturers. And how is that working? Why do we need this bill to change what appears to be a pretty good working situation right now?
Yeah, so good question, Senator, I was gonna bring that up.
That's 2 of them today.
Jeez, I know, somebody.
I'm sorry, I don't wanna make his head too big, but it sounds like.
He's knocking it out of the park, it's great.
Yeah, so last time I was here, I wasn't too familiar, and in the meantime, I read up on them. So I think there is this kind of agreement that these machines are getting more complicated. I think even the manufacturers acknowledge, like, yeah, it's like vehicles. You can't just repair them yourself anymore. And with this equipment, it's even harder to get a repair shop come and take care of you in time. So the American Farm Bureau Federation started kind of negotiating with these various manufacturers to come to some kind of agreement in the absence of legislation, which is what we're talking about. And so I think at this point, the American Farm Bureau says around 70% of manufacturers have entered into this MOU. And the MOUs, they're all the same. I've read it. They're all, there might be a couple of words different. But the MOUs with John Deere, Kubota, they're all kind of the same. So why do you need legislation? If these MOUs are working, I would first bring in some testimony, like, is this working? Like, is the MOU actually having the manufacturer come and help? Or are they allowing independent providers? So the MOU does do a lot of what the bill does. Okay, as far as the idea of helping owners, helping independent providers get the equipment, getting the codes, right? The MOU will do that. However, an MOU is not a contract, it's a handshake. It is a promise. It's memorandum of understanding. It's, yeah, we will help you. But there's no teeth to it. So if a farmer in rural Vermont, if his tractor breaks down and he calls John Deere and says, can you come help me? I understand you're willing to work with independent providers for this MOU. John Deere may say, yes, we'll get back to you, right? And if they don't get back to him in a week or 2 weeks, he can keep calling. But there's no attorney general that's going to hold John Deere or any other company accountable under the MOU. I think it's a recognition that there's a problem, right? And I think it's important that a lot of companies agree that there's a problem. But I think the point of legislation is to give teeth to it and to require these manufacturers to assist owners and independent repair shops.
So do you know the date of the original MOU, and has it been amended at all by adding new manufacturers?
This one, I have the John Deere one. This is January 8th of last year, so a little over a year. I think they were one of the first. I don't know that for
I
sure.
think they were.
Yeah, and there's been a few others. Kubota again have done it. Again, around 70% is what the American Farm Bureau says. Now I don't know what the Vermont. If there is a Farm Bureau here, I'm not sure what that organization is called.
Yeah.
I can't attest to how they feel, but the American Lobby Association Farm Bureau is, I think, somewhat satisfied based on these MOUs. But again, these are not contracts. This is not legislation. It's just a handshake.
Understood. Thank you.
Sure.
Irene,
To me, it reminds me of the situation of you have a union shop in one employer and you have a non-union shop elsewhere. And just because of the dynamic of having a union, there's always that threat of you can be the best employer in the world, but if you decide to withdraw some of your MOUs and your agreements with your employees, there's that union waiting to stand up for your employees also like they do with the manufacturer down the street. I think it's just that subtle pressure. And the fact that John Deere didn't come out with that 10 years ago says a world to me that our right to repair bill was introduced about the same time, was it not?
Yeah, this is the 2023 bill, so I imagine it, yeah.
So to me, that's beyond coincidence. These have been problems now for automobile owners as well as tractor owners, I think, for quite some time. And that I find it interesting that when these right to repair bills came out in various legislatures.
Yeah.
John Deere woke up and started putting out an MOU. So I think it's really important that we have this document with teeth, not just waiting for the benevolence of a manufacturer or 2 or 3 or 10 out of the goodness of their heart to put out an MOU.
Yeah, and there is language here, it's interesting, that says if the American Farm Bureau begins to back states, package bills, that they're gonna back out of the MOU, that manufacturers, John Deere, Kubota, that they will back out, and there's nothing holding to this, like I said, right? It is interesting though to say that if the Farm Bureau begins to support this legislation, they're gonna back out of the MOU. To me, it's not quite a gun to the head, but it's an interesting way, to negotiate.
You said your letter was dated January 5th.
8th, 2022.
So that had to be negotiated out months and months ahead of this bill. I mean, you know, because this bill wouldn't have got introduced until.
Yeah, but it was drafted in the summer of 22, wasn't it? I mean, everything has a lead time and everybody gets wind of whatever's going on at the state house. I mean, people talk, right?
On a draft bill?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and our draft bill probably came because some other state probably passed one, right? And you're not really sure about this in the files, but this has been a trend in recent years.
A bill like H-81.
Yeah.
When you have a bill drafted with him.
Yeah.
Right. He can't divulge a thing.
No, but I might mention to somebody else on the ag committee upstairs, hey, are you guys doing anything about right to repair, right? Because we talk amongst ourselves and who knows who's listening. The walls have ears. And other states are doing this, right? We're not the
Usually.
first state out of the gate. So I'm just saying, even if no one like your predecessor divulged this, if this is the buzz, I don't blame John Deere for getting its act together and putting out an MOU. Good for them. I'm glad they anticipated it and are rising to the occasion. But I'm just thinking that we need to follow through and have teeth also.
The only thing I was trying to correct is the MOU was put together long before this bill was put together.
Sure, but not long before other bills like this. Because this bill may be modeled on some other state's bill. That's what I'm saying. We are not the first in the nation to put together a right to repair
Yeah.
bill, right? So that's what I'm saying. John Deere's responding to somebody out there, if not Vermont.
There's another state that's passed. Right?
Colorado, yes, sir.
Colorado. And,
It's pending in several other states. Other states have, like New York, passed their version that exempted ag equipment. And some other, like video consoles, there's certain equipment that gets accepted. But Colorado's the first one. They passed the right to repair wheelchair, which are also complicated to repair, and ag equipment. And theirs took effect January 1st of this year. So yeah, clearly there's this movement of a right to repair in general, not just ag equipment. And I think because we all know that this equipment is getting very, very complicated. And in a state like Vermont, where it's so, again, I'm from Texas, but I came from a big city in Texas. Even then it's hard to find repair providers for certain things. I didn't have a farm, but there'd be times where I'd have an appliance or something and it would take a while. So I think this is probably important for you all to consider just because of the ruralness of the state. And I'd be curious what the farmers say about how long it is taking to get their equipment repaired.
well, the big issue that I've heard about is like when they're cropping. That, it's 24/7. comes Sunday morning and they go out there, take off, and they maybe have got an hour into the morning and something acts up on it's always usually the motor. And then they're down for the whole day. Well, then the next day it rains all day. So they can't work anyways, but the repair guy can't get there for, they usually have one repairman that's on call over the weekend, but they're usually busy. But I'll probably get in trouble, but the same people that push to have all this junk put on this equipment that makes it so it won't run are the same people that want to pass this bill to make people come to make it run. And I mean, it's crazier than heck. I ran trucks forever. In my old trucks, 5 miles to a gallon was the best you could do, 4.5 to 5. Well, I changed the whole deal and well, I had to because everything burnt. So about 93, I changed and bought all new trucks. 6.5 miles to a gallon would run, or one of them ran 297,000 miles in 1 year. And never touched it. Never, just changed the oil and the filters, but never laid a finger on that vehicle. I mean, these brand new ones. They're sitting or in the garage now that the boys are running. They got almost a brand new spare sitting there waiting to go to take one of the new ones places when it acts. I mean, but the same people that push for all the anti-pollution and the new trucks that are getting 6.5 miles to go, they're back to 5. So, I mean, I don't know. You take one, this is going 1 step forward and 2 back. It's and those trucks that went from 4.5 to 5 to 6.5, that doesn't sound like much of a difference. But you figure that out, it paid that truck that went to 297,000, paid the full payment on that truck, just the savings in fuel. The other trucks that did 120, 130, it always paid the fuel, difference in the fuel paid half of the payment.
I have a Class A motorhome. It's basically like a big bus, right? I drove that. That's how I got here. I drove my bus here.
From
my dog,
Texas?
yes.
Oh, you
It
stopped trucks and fuel did?
Well, let's say I got about 9 miles. I got about 9 miles per gallon, and I thought that was bad, but that sounds horrible.
You got 9?
I got 9. If you go 60, and I was towing my truck too. But that doesn't matter. You're driving a 20,000-pound vehicle and you're towing something like you don't know what's back there.
You haven't got all that anti-pollution stuff, have you?
What do you mean in Texas?
All the afterburners and everything?
No. It's a gas engine.
Oh, a gas motor,
it's a
what
gas
the hell?
The gas.
Their name.
Ford V10. Ford V10. They don't make it anymore.
It's a diesel set, they put all the, I don't know what they put on gas cars,
Catalytic converter. Yeah. Which has not been sold.
I guess.
Yeah.
No, so Brian,
So, Mr. Chair, with folks that want this, they're looking to be able to buy the equipment that would fix things
And I think that's
Okay.
where we ought to zero in on, is that, you don't need all that junk in there if we're gonna do something. Just have the OEMs have to, make available the diagnostic, tool.
Yeah,
Like we can buy one for $5,000 from Cummins. So you plug it into your truck
Yeah.
and it'll tell you. But if
so you'd have to buy so you buy the $5,000 piece of equipment for one of your trucks, plug it in, and that sort of gives you
if it goes
the
to
problem, yeah,
running funny,
yeah,
but Kenworth is probably in Burlington,
yeah,
is probably got the best mechanics in Vermont.
okay,
They've been there a long time. They go to school,
yeah,
and all. Well, one of the new ones went back to none. It was down there for a month.
right.
And they,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
and they have all the equipment.
Right,
And say if we'd have had that at home.
Yeah.
And we plugged it in. What could we have done with it if the professionals that work on this stuff every day, if it took them a month
oh, I
to
see what you're saying.
figure it out?
Even if you had the equipment, it's not like you could have done anything. Like, even if you knew about it, it still takes them a while to figure it out and fix
Well,
it.
they tore that motor all.
Yeah, yeah. I get it.
I mean, I used to fool with those diesels,
Yeah,
I turned a few wrenches.
yeah.
And, the boys asked me what I thought was wrong with it, cause it was still run.
And you were right.
Oh, that's right, this is,
Yeah.
yeah,
And, but that wasn't it when it got to Burlington.
yeah,
But, I think the manufacturers should make available the diagnostic testing.
okay.
But, I mean, Christ, this is
Well,
11 pages long. I mean, you need one sentence.
the findings take up, the findings are 3 pages here. And
Well,
you have to define. You have to define what, agriculture equipment is, because if you don't define that, the right to repair could broaden or lessen, so you want to make sure that's defined. You want to define, so if you want to try to cut the bill back, I would need to just take a close look, and if the main thing is you want to make the diagnostic tools available, does that mean you also want to provide the tools, like the actual, you want to give independent repair shops the ability to help owners diagnose and fix their equipment? Or do you just want to give the ability to diagnose the problem and that's it?
Yep, they'd have to buy their own tools.
With this bill says the OEMs would still charge the owners or independent shops. They can still charge them for the tools, charge them for the documentation that is reasonably fair, right? And the MOU does the same thing. The MOU says we'll provide these things at a reasonable cost to the owners. So a lot of this would have to stay. If you take out a section just to make the bill smaller, it's going to have some pretty, I think, important impacts to the meaning of it.
But could some of this be done through the memorandum of agreement?
Well,
I don't know how those,
but Rick says that isn't.
Well, gee.
okay,
Yeah, it's basically doing what the bill says, but
Right.
there's nothing holding the manufacturers accountable.
Is there
Is it
anything we
working
could
though?
pass that would do that?
This bill, if you want to hold the manufacturers accountable, this bill does that, and we can certainly talk about ways to make it easier to understand.
I thought I saw you with one page of.
Of this one,
the-
Oh, this
no,
one?
the memorandum.
the memorandum, first of all, it's single spaced, and it's still,
That's all one?
Yeah.
One manufacturer?
yeah, and they're all the same. Every manufacturer enters into the same MOU with the American Farm Bureau Federation. But yes, there are some minor differences, but for the most part, the American Farm Bureau wants to help, right? They want to help farmers, and this is their way of helping. They can't force states or the federal government to pass a right to repair. So this is the best they can do. It's up to the states to say, well, this is a great template. We're going to make the manufacturers be accountable to the farmers and to the independent providers by saying if you don't provide the equipment to fix it.
But Mr. Chair, the memorandum of agreement might be working. That's the other thing, right?
Well, we gotta try to find that out.
Yeah.
Okay. So if it's,
Do you have any results of whether or not it?
Amber Berry, Vermont Farm Bureau. Before I came over here this morning, I had a talk with Emily at American Farm Bureau. And I learned that there is a form that they are tracking for any issues. So if a farmer has an issue getting whatever is lined in the MOU, they can actually fill that out, and American Farm Bureau is tracking that to make sure that there's still that agreements with the MOUs. I can get you a copy of that form.
Any results,
So far, she said that no complaints are coming in.
Well, that would be my next question to Rick, although you're kind of thrown in the middle here at a late stage of the game. But was there ever any indication that the MOU wasn't working? I mean, if we have 50, 60, 70 people screaming and hollering, then we probably got a problem.
So, Senator, yeah, it's a good question. I tend to think that because most states are taking this up, there's not just smoke, there must be some fire. There must be some at some point, and maybe it was 2021, maybe it was 2019. Like Senator Renner was saying, like, yes, this MOU is not based on our bill, right? That some other state started talking about this.
Yeah.
And John Deere, because they're smart business people, they thought we need to make something right before these states do this and hold our feet to the fire. So my guess, to answer your question, is that yes, at some point there is this problem of certain farmers in certain probably parts of states, they're not getting the help they need. But yeah, is it necessary to pass a bill? That's up to what you all think and what the testimony from actual farmers in the field say.
And so far, as according to Amber, we're not hearing a lot of problems.
well, and the biggest complaint I've heard is dealerships are getting further apart. And so the dealers maybe 50, 60 miles away from where you are farming. And of course, that whole circle gets bigger. And so it takes longer to get there. You haven't got that local franchise, in your community any longer. I mean, we had a John Deere dealer right in Troy for years. That's been gone for 25, 30 years. And there's one up in Derby, I guess, but it's only 15 miles. But, I think someday next week we gotta find but this we don't have to hurry because crossover, we gotta get our rest bills, so.
Oh, that's right.
I want to get Rick in and run through it and just keep it fresh in our minds. So. Any other questions in regards to the MOU or the H81? Nope. Thank you, Rick.
Hey, thank you.
thank you.
Glad to be back here, yeah.
Yeah, well, just,
So where's your mobile home now?
Marshfield.
Oh,
I bought property there a couple years ago, and now it's being used for parking. Just my mobile home parking, or my RV parking, yeah.
oh, okay.
I have space there to park it, so.
but you did good if you came up through and got 9 miles to a gallon.
Yeah. Roughly. Yeah, parts of it, it's pretty flat up until you get closer to Vermont. So I took basically, what was that, I-20 up through East Texas and then went through Nashville and Ohio. So it was beautiful. I never driven that way before.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I bought a couple of new trucks in Texas and, my son and I flew down and picked them up. We went up through Oklahoma and that way. And,
different kind of scenery.
I'll tell you, cutting across, you just brown grass, all you saw, and as far as you could see, you might see a horse or a beef cow or something, but
What time of year was it?
it was in the fall,
Okay, that's not too bad.
yeah.
The summer's there for.
Well, it was late fall because we got up near Oklahoma City and got into a heck of a snowstorm.
Oklahoma City.
Oh, wicked storm.
Yeah.
And, yeah. And, yeah, it was bad. It was, you know, we were planning on staying there anyways. So we just got off and got a hotel, but, there was cars in the media and like that.
Yeah, they get tornadoes, they get snowstorms, they get
They get-
drought. They have every major hurricane.
I
They get
wouldn't
everything.
trade Orleans County for that entire state.
Okay, I don't know what that means, but
Yeah.
I think it kind of gets Orleans
It's a
County.
little small plot in Vermont for that whole.
Where is
state.
it? What part of Vermont is it in?
Northeast. Kansas.
Northeast, okay, all right,
Yeah.
well, I'm learning.
Yeah, it must be one, no, maybe Essex County is the smallest, but pretty small.
Yeah, okay, so you wouldn't trade that for Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And you're on the records.
That's one.
That's good.
Yeah, I usually don't say anything that I hadn't just shouldn't tell anybody, so.
That's a fact. All right, I'll see you all. Keep me posted.
See you later. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well.
Well, that was helpful. That was helpful.
Well, we're gonna have to do something. Make a decision on it, one way or the other.
Yep.
But, I thought, you know, we'll get our our S bills out that. That we need to do to send over. And then we'll go back to work on these H bills when we have more time.
That's good.
Yep. And you folks, any of you have anything? Just come to us. That's bad. Thank you for coming. And I guess if we're all set.
We're good. Yeah, that's good. Good morning.
So we'll,